Welcome back to Worldview. Now, Robert Hunziker is a frequent guest here on the program. He's a man who lives his personal mission statement to simplify the problem in essays and articles based upon his research of the science, and he's able to address the horrors of climate change without the circumspection required of scientists, which inevitably loses the public's attention and understanding of the severity of the problem. And he's a veteran environmental journalist. He's a contributor here at UK Progressive, and his article, The Top 10 List of the Dreadful Effects of Climate Change, just appeared on UK Progressive magazine. Now, he joins us again this week to recap and discuss this terrifying list and what we can expect if nothing is done to slow emissions. Robert Hunziker, welcome back to Worldview.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks so much. Great to be with you again.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So this is quite an article you've put together. It's in the form of, I guess, if for lack of a better word, a David Letterman style top 10 list, except I don't have Paul Schaefer and the world's most dangerous band to drum roll and cymbal us across each. But let's go through them one by one, and we're going to do this in a couple of segments so that we'll have next week the conclusion of it. But let's start with number 10.
Okay, great. And just as a prelude, I thought when I think about this climate change issue, people think about it, I think, in very general terms. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, specifically, what's happening here? Because that's where the rubber meets the highway, if you will. And if you start to look at the specifics, it influences and impacts everything about the entire world and everything about everybody in it in so many ways. It's remarkable. And so what I did is I said, well, let's look at some established trends that are already out there that we know are really happening so that we don't play a guessing game here. It doesn't do us any good to guess about what's going to happen. Let's look at some real trends that are already happening, then extrapolate to the dreadful effect, if you will. What happens if this goes to a conclusion? So number 10. The number 10 in my list is the end of Alpine skiing.
Now, that's going to be a bummer to a lot of people who enjoy that downhill form of skiing. So what do you mean by it?
I believe it may be one of the world's largest recreational activities. And certainly the numbers are huge. There are 2,100 ski resorts around the world. In the United States alone, it's a $12 billion industry. They employ over 200,000 people. Problem going forward is winter as we know it is really on borrowed time. The last winter was the fourth warmest on record since 1896, and it had the third lowest snow cover. Now, if you look at what's happening, for example, in Europe, their snow lines are going up the altitude, up the mountainside. For example, in France. In Bayeux, France, the mayor last year decided to abandon the cable towers for their chairlifts. And they're going to convert their ski area to more low-impact alpine activities. One of the local officials there made the statement when they announced this, that the medium-altitude resorts will have no future in 10 to 15 years. The reason? Because of the changing climate.
Well, and I know they're also very, very worried in Sochi about what's going to happen because they've had a very low snow cover, and we've got coming up in the winter of 2014 the Olympic Games, the Winter Olympic Games, and they're very concerned about whether there'll be enough snow. There certainly won't be any in the Olympic Village, and whether there'll be enough for the alpine and the runs that they do up there.
Wow. Well, then if you look at the higher altitudes, let's look at the most iconic ski resort of them all, the Chacotaya Ski Lodge, which is has been around since 1932 in Bolivia. It's the world's highest ski area at about 18,000 feet. It's permanently closed. Why? The glacier is gone. A UN environmental program did an analysis, and their projection is that more than half of the ski resorts throughout Europe, so that would be Germany, Switzerland, Austria, France, they'll be forced out of business over the coming decades because of the snow line rising.
Wow, just scary stuff. So what's at number 9, Robert?
Okay, let me just give you one more stat on this snow business.
Sure.
Okay, the average number of snow days the last 2 decades is lower than at any time since records have been kept, and that's over 100 years ago. So, yeah, that's a bummer. We're all going to have to go to Dubai where they have that indoor skiing at a mall. And I've been there and seen that. And one of the most comical things you'll ever see is people in their regular dress, their gowns, coming down the slope on skis. It's weird. Number 9 is glacial lake outburst floods destroying villages, towns, and communities. And these glacial lake outburst floods, they're very unexpected. They happen with amazing suddenness and destroy an entire village. For example, last year in Nepal, you had one of these glacial lakes burst, and it killed 10 people, 60 people are missing. 2 years ago in Peru, a large slab from the glacier fell into a lake, causing a tsunami, which flooded 4 villages. The problem is, as these glaciers around the world melt at ever faster rates, of course, a lot of the water is deposited up at higher altitudes than lakes, in the mountains, if you will. And the more fierce and more rapid you get the melting, the more vulnerable those lakes become. The International Center for Integrated Mountain Development has identified 200 of these glacial lakes that threaten areas in the Himalayan region. So in Nepal, in China, in India, Pakistan, 200 potential communities downhill are at risk of massive flooding without notice.
And we're not even talking at the poles where most of the glacier melt has been. We're actually talking in and near and close to populated areas.
Yeah, we are. And if you did a chart or a graph going back the last 70 years of the frequency of these glacial lake outbursts, and in parallel that with rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere, they form an exact parallel in a slope going up, not down. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is we know there's a direct correlation between the rising levels of CO2 in the atmosphere and the frequency of the glacial lake outburst floods. This is a real risk for a couple things. Of course, when the glaciers melt, a lot of people lose their water supply. But then secondly, these towns and cities and villages below these lakes are at risk of these cascading, I call them GLOFs, G-L-O-Fs, glacial lake outburst floods.
Whew. Okay, something else to look for. What's at number 8, Robert?
Okay, number 8 is desertification of the world's arable land, mostly farmland. Yeah. The Asian Development Bank believes that as many as 42 million environmental migrants. So again, one of the problems we're running into with this glacial, rather climate change business is that it's forcing people to move out of their habitats in the areas where they live. They estimate that 42 million environmental migrants over the past 2 years in Asia alone have had to move because of weather events.
Yeah, we're seeing that here in what used to be northern Europe. I mean, the temperatures here have been, on average, much higher, much milder. We've not had any snow for the last 2 winters to speak of. And, we're seeing insects and migratory birds coming off of the continent that we've never seen here in the United Kingdom. So, absolutely. What do we have at number 7?
Sure. Number 7 is embedded droughts. And Rutgers University and the University of Washington have completed an analysis, and they've figured out that the rapid warming of the Arctic is causing these high-impact extreme weather events that we're seeing in Europe and in the United States. What happens is the Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. As a result, that's affecting and altering the jet streams. And in turn, you get steeper troughs and higher ridges in the jet streams. That allows for these long-duration events, droughts, floods, heat waves.
As we've
This
seen
has
throughout
been-
the entire month of March, the coldest March on history in the United Kingdom, because we've been trapped in one of these waves of the jet stream, and the temperature hasn't gone above 2 Celsius, which is about 36 degrees for much of the entire month. It's the lowest recorded temperature since they've been recording for an entire month.
There you go. You're seeing it right there in your backyard, and it's really been distinctly noticeable in Europe and in North America the last few years. In March of last year in the United States, in the Northeast and in the Midwest, winter turned to summer almost overnight in March. You had 80-degree temperatures.
Yeah.
Then, following that, we had the worst drought in America over the last 50 years, the following spring, summer. You're having the same thing happening around the world in Russia, where they've had to halt grain shipment of wheat. The same thing in Syria, which is part of the breadbasket of the Middle East. They had a 5-year drought. They lost 60% of their producing land during that 5-year drought. India had their second drought in 4 years, and it went so far as to affect their electrical power because of the relationship between the hydropower and their other sources for power. It strained the system. They had the world's largest power outage. 1 billion people didn't have power for a while.
And if you look at what we've gone through here, we went through the entire, most of half of January and almost the entire month of February with what would amount to a month's worth of rainfall in a matter of a day. So we've been well over limits where other areas have experienced drought. Robert, this has been wonderful to talk about. We'll continue this segment in part 2 in next week's program, and we'll go back through number 7 all the way down to number 1. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
You bet. Thank you.
This is Robert Hunziker. He's an environmental journalist, and he's put together an article on the top 10 absolute horrors out there, the dreadful effects of climate change. We'll review the rest of it in next week's segment, and he's been gracious enough to join us, so we'll see him again next week. You're watching Worldview with Denis Campbell. Stay right here.